Hi and welcome to the running channel. I'm Andy and today, together with Anna, we're going to be taking you through some of the very best trail running shoes on the market right now. We're not paid by the brands to say nice things, and all of the opinions that you're going to hear are our own, so I hope you find them useful. Now, I was recently asked by somebody whether or not trail running shoes exist to help support pronation. Ultimately, the answer is no, not specifically, but trail running shoes are designed to be more stable, to help you deal with uneven terrain and so on. But realistically, the only way to find out whether or not they're going to provide the degree of pronation support that you need is to head to a store and try out the different brands, the different combinations of cushioning and arch support that are going to work for you.
So stay tuned for our top picks, as we will both be choosing our favourite at the end of this video. First off though, if you are new around here, please do hit subscribe and tap the bell icon so you get notified when we upload new videos all about running, which we do every week. This is the Nike Pegasus Trail 2, so as you can probably see, well used. I mostly ran in these ones in the summer, so when the trails were a bit drier. One thing that I did notice about this shoe was actually where it was wet and a bit slippy on rocks, the traction wasn't as great as some of the other trail shoes that I have run in. At 270 grams for a women's 5.5, it's not the lightest trail shoe out there, but it is comfy straight out of the box, so I felt absolutely fine going out in a pretty long run to start with, straight out of the box on this one. It's really cushioned. The Nike React foam inside it makes it a real comfortable trail shoe when you're out on rocks and on gnarly trails and things like that. It doesn't have a rock plate, but I didn't feel like it really needed one. There were no issues with any rocks or any stones or tree roots coming in underneath and being able to feel those with my feet. This particular trail shoe is not waterproof, however there is a Gore-Tex version. Like I say, most of the trails that I've run in these were in the summer months where it was a bit drier, so not as wet as some of the trails out there at the moment. So overall, a really comfortable shoe. I really do like this one. It feels very, very comfy straight out the box, a really good fit, true to size. I'm a UK 6.5 and it felt really comfy. There was no issue with my slightly wider foot. The toe box totally catered for that. One thing though is that around the heel, it does lack a bit of support. So if you are prone to going over on your ankle, and perhaps you like a bit of a snug feel around your ankle when you're looking for a trail shoe, then perhaps this isn't the one for you. But overall, I was really impressed with the Nike Pegasus Trail 2.
This is the Columbia Montrail F.K.T, or fastest known time. And what I really liked about these is they felt really comfortable straight out the box with a nice snug fit, but enough stretch in the upper to provide a good fit for a different range of foot shapes. The upper itself is really comfortable, but that's because it's flexible and soft. And that does mean they're not the most well protected of the shoes on test. And in fact, they were quite quick to get wet and to soak through. And if you do run through branches, then you'll probably know about it. They've got an 8mm drop coupled with 4mm lugs for traction, and I did find that they gave really good grip in a whole different variety of conditions. There's also a full-length rock plate which does do a good job of protecting the underside of your feet against rocks or stones that you might run over. They give it a really nice feeling of being close to the ground and feeling responsive for that, but they're definitely not the most cushioned pair of trail shoes that I've run in. So you do need to weigh up your priorities of responsiveness versus softer cushioning. So overall, I really like the aesthetic, fit and grip, and it's definitely worth mentioning that these are one of the cheapest pairs on test and that they're available for substantially less than their RRP in a lot of places. So they could be a really good introduction to trail shoes.
This is the Adidas 2 Ultra Parley, so pretty standard looking Adidas shoe, made for the trails, and it's made from the knitted ocean plastic. So it's got a booty fit feel to it, fits really, really snugly around your ankle, comes up quite high as well, which is great for keeping leaves and rocks and dirt out of the inside of your shoe when you're running on the trails. So as with a lot of the Adidas shoes, it also has the Continental rubber outsole. The fit of this shoe did feel a little bit narrow on my foot to start with, so a couple of wears in and it does actually fit much better now, but straight out of the box I didn't personally find it as comfortable as some of the other trail shoes, but that is probably because of my wide foot. For a UK 6.5, lengthwise true to size, but I would recommend if you've got a slightly wider foot, just trying it on if you can, or giving it a couple of goes out the box. I know that a friend of mine during lockdown ran 100 miles in this shoe in one go non-stop. Well done, Fiona. So I have it on good authority that it can get you through some super tough mileage. So it's pretty striking to look at too. If you are a trail runner, you will know that the brighter the better, and obviously it means that when it gets covered in mud you can still stand out. So overall, this shoe I did find comfortable after a couple of wears. It's not the lightest shoe, but it's also not the heaviest, so it does feel really responsive. There's no rock plate and it's not waterproof, but there is a Gore-Tex version available of this shoe too if you want to spend a little bit more money. But overall, on some of the muddier trails, especially that we've got during this winter, the traction is really good. The lugs really grip in nicely. I've not fallen over in these ones yet, which is a result. And so the Adidas Terraultra Parley does get a thumbs up from me.
This is the Salming Trail Hydro. Now Salming are a Swedish brand who also make handball and squash shoes, so they might not be a mainstream running brand that everyone's familiar with. That doesn't mean that they're not worth considering. Trail Hydro comes with quite a lot of features to keep you protected out on the trails. For starters, they're waterproof, using a HydroGuard membrane to keep water out, but also to allow your feet to breathe. Because of that, the upper does feel a lot stiffer than you might be used to from a road shoe, for example. But they do have a nice, comfortable, soft lining, so I did find that they felt really protective when I was out there running. And I felt very well protected from both the elements, but also from any debris like branches, particularly with the reinforcement around the toe area. There's a gusseted tongue, which is also made of the same membrane, so it helps to keep the water out. And there's a pull to tighten lacing mechanism, a bit like those used on Salomon shoes, and I found that gave a really nice fit, and it was also, as a massive bonus, really easy to use with cold, wet fingers. There's also a Vibram Mega Grip outsole with 4mm lugs, which I found gave great grip even in pretty treacherous conditions. There's a 5mm drop in combination with a decent amount of cushioning. So in my opinion, overall, these are a good all-round shoe, but not one for quicker running. They don't feel particularly responsive, but they do feel really protective and might be a great option for longer days out on the trails. They're a little bit expensive from an RRP perspective, so that's one thing to bear in mind. So if these are something you're interested in, I'd recommend shopping around.
This is the Inov-8 G270, not going to be missed in these bright ones. So these are actually the shoes that I ran our scavenger hunt challenge accepted trail episode in, which was very, very muddy and very, very wet. These shoes are not waterproof. My feet did get very, very soggy on that run. However, they are an incredibly comfortable trail shoe. You've got some padding around the heel. It feels like a more traditional running shoe fit, but you've got the extra durability of it being the trail shoe. Inov-8 using their graphene material, one of the strongest materials in the world. In fact, the ISS, the International Space Station, uses graphene for fact fans. There's no rock plate in this shoe either, but I didn't really feel like I needed one. The grip on it was fantastic. Going down hills in really muddy conditions, really slippy, slidey. I didn't end up falling over, which is absolutely unheard of for me. So yeah, really impressed with that. Really standard lacing system on it and really true to size when it comes to the fit as well. Now, trail shoes aren't renowned for being the lightest running shoes in the world. You've got all the extra tech and grips and lugs to keep you on your feet. But at 270 grams across the size curve for this shoe, it again isn't one of the lightest going. It doesn't really feel particularly cumbersome or heavy on your feet, and it's perfectly all right for trotting around on the trails where you're not going to be trying to break any world record times, let's be honest. But it's something to bear in mind that it is one of the heaviest shoes, but really, really nice to run in.
This is the Altra Olympus 4. Now Altra have made their name for great zero drop trail shoes, and there are loads of brilliant things to like about the Olympus 4. But the first thing to notice is just how different it looks. The entire shoe is shaped completely differently to any of the others that we're testing in this video. That's even more obvious when you look at the bottom of the shoe and the fact that the toe area is shaped in this sort of slightly square way. ideally to allow your toes to spread out but still provide a good degree of locked-in feeling through the lacing and the midfoot. It's a really chunky and actually pretty heavy shoe, but it doesn't feel like that at all when you put it on. It looks big, but I found that the gusted tongue and the lacing provided a really nice snug fit. Despite that 33mm stack height, they don't feel unstable thanks to the nice wide base. I really feel like you could throw anything at these and have great grip as well. Trail shoes do quite often have a lower drop to provide greater stability and greater feel for the trails. But if you haven't ever run in a zero drop shoe before, then you should probably think about being sensible and maybe transitioning into the use of a zero drop shoe over a period of time. Overall for me, if you want a good all-rounder, you're comfortable with the idea of zero drop and you want a shoe that you can throw anything at and spend all day on the trails, then this is a great option.
This is a well-loved muddy shoe. It's the Salomon Wildcross, and I probably should have given it a clean before presenting this shoe to you. And if you want to know how to clean your muddy shoes, make sure you check out our video on the running channel for that. Anyway, back to the Salomon Wildcross. I, as you can tell, wear this shoe a lot on the trails at the moment, that it's so muddy and so claggy out there, but this shoe has been one of my favorites. I'm probably going to give away the ending to this video quite early on. So the Salomon Wildcross, what do I love about it? I love the lacing system on it. When you go out and run on trails, it's likely that you might get your laces caught up on a tree root or snagged on some brambles and that kind of thing. With the Salomon Wildcross, the lacing system is really thin and really compact, but you do it up by pulling the tag in the tongue and then tightening that down, and then you tuck the extra loop, this bit, inside a little pocket in the tongue so it is out of the way and it's not going to snag on anything, which is a really great feature of these shoes. As I said, I've been out on the very muddy, very slippy trails in these shoes, and the grip on them, the system on the bottom, on the sole of these, really does grip incredibly well. I'm yet to fall over on the trails in these shoes, touch wood. So, Salomon Wildcross, fit, super comfy, really cushioned, and it is quite a heavy shoe, but it doesn't feel heavy when it's on, which doesn't really make too much sense. But you've got so much flexibility and movement that it allows within the shoe itself that it doesn't feel too heavy on. So this shoe doesn't have a rock plate, isn't waterproof, definitely had some very soggy feet on runs in these shoes, but I really can't think of anything bad to say about them. They truly are a great all-rounder for hitting the trails, staying on your feet, which is probably the main thing, and just a real comfy shoe to be able to get a lot of happy miles in.
This is the Merrell Rubato, another zero drop trail running shoe, and the first thing that I have to comment on is just how plush and comfortable and soft the cushioning feels when you try them on. Despite that level of cushioning, they're a pretty light shoe. And even though there is a level of protection around the toe area here, the upper itself is also very light, which feels comfortable, but actually perhaps doesn't provide such a great degree of protection against the elements as some of the other shoes. It's also worth noting that I felt that the arch came up a little bit higher, so I felt that more when I was running. So that's worth noting depending on whether you do or don't like that sensation of a more supportive arch area when you're running. They feel really light and bouncy to run in, but in comparison perhaps with the Altra, for example, that high stack height does make them feel a little bit less stable and a little bit less responsive. They have a Vibram Mega Grip outsole and I didn't experience any problems with that whatsoever. So if you're looking for a shoe that's great for all-round easy running, zero drop across all different kinds of trail terrain, then this could be a good all-round option.
This is the Scarpa Rush, our heaviest shoe on test, and it certainly feels like a bit of a beast. So at 300 grams for this shoe, it's definitely not going to feel particularly light when you're out running in it. So the Scarpa Rush is what they call an ergonomic fit, and it certainly provides an awful lot of support. There's no rock plate and it's not a waterproof shoe, but what it is not a bad entry level trail shoes. So if you've never worn a trail shoe before and you're looking for something to get you started and you don't mind about wearing slightly heavier shoes, then the Scarpa Rush is probably one to consider for beginner trail runners if you're just curious to find out what it's like running in trail shoes. So it's got a really good grip system on the bottom, so running in muddy trails, really good traction on the wet and slippy mud, and just super cushioned overall. So if you like a cushioned, supportive shoe when you run, then this is probably the trail alternative for you.
This is the Hoka One One Torrent 2, and on the insole it says lightweight and nimble, and I'd have to agree. And I'd also add good value because this is actually one of the shoes with the lowest RRP on test. The fit is snug and there's a really good amount of cushioning on the gusseted tongue, which I really liked. There's a 5mm drop, which is pretty standard across the Hoka range, and I feel that strikes a really good balance between responsiveness and feel for the terrain and providing a good degree of support. One of the ways they've managed to keep the weight down is to reduce the overall amount of outsole. In fact, if you look closely at the bottom, you can see patches of the midsole showing through. And aside from the lugs, there are only selected areas where they've added the grippy outsole material. There isn't a rock plate, so you do feel a little bit more of the terrain as you're running on it, but the Pro-Fly midsole does a really good job of cushioning that, and where you lose out in grip, you make up for in responsiveness, and they genuinely do feel like a nimble shoe. Overall, this is a nice, simple shoe that does a great job all around, and feels at home across a whole range of different paces out on the trails.
This is the Fujitrabuco Lyte by Asics. Really lovely and jazzy colourway on this shoe. And the name is a bit of a giveaway. The Lyte means that it is actually our lightest trail shoe on test. So what's it like to wear on the trails? Well, it feels like more of a typical road shoe than a trail shoe. You have got the added traction on the outsole compared to a road shoe, but it is so light, it's very speedy. What that means is that it's not the best for really gnarly trails, technical stuff that's really slippy and muddy. But if you're going out around your local park or even on trails like the ones behind me, then this shoe is great for daily training, really. It's not waterproof. There is a Gore-Tex version available and there is no rock plate either. So that shows you the kind of terrain that this shoe is suited to. Now, our previous trail shoes roundup, we did actually feature the Asics Fujitrabuco Pro, which I actually prefer to this one because it had a different lacing system. This is just a standard lacing system compared to the previous one. And also the Pro version has more of a sock liner that goes around your ankle, which stops stuff getting into your shoe while you're running. So I did actually prefer the Pro compared to the Lyte. But if you're looking for a shoe that you can go from road to trail pretty easily and that you can do a little bit of speedier stuff on the trails, then this is a good bet. And actually, it reminds me a lot of my first ever pair of trail shoes, which were Asics Fuji Attack 5s. And it's a super comfy shoe. It fits really nicely. It is a little on the narrow side compared to most of the trail shoes that I've tried in this test, but it didn't cause me any problems fit-wise. It was true to size and more than anything, just a snug fit. It's a really comfortable ride. It's very cushioned, especially around the heel. And Asics has their flight foam through the midsole too to give you a lot more responsiveness when you are bounding down the trail. So this is the Asics Fujitrabuco Lyte.
This is the New Balance Fresh Foam Montrail V1. Last time we looked at the Hierro V5, which does have a Gore-Tex update to it, which might be worth checking out if you're in the market for something like that, but we wanted to focus on the Montrail V1 in this test. This has a 4mm drop, which is quite a bit lower than the Hierro V5, but one thing that they do have in common is the Fresh Foam midsole. Now this provides a substantial amount of cushioning and actually a really good degree of protection along with a smooth ride. With the Fresh Foam built up around the heel area, they did give a real feeling of solidity out on the trail. And the Fresh Foam midsole, in combination with a slightly less aggressive outsole than some of the others on test, meant that they felt a little bit more versatile and actually were comfortable running on the road as well as the trails themselves. Because of that though, they are a little bit less grippy, although I didn't have any problems on some of the trails that I normally run on. They fit really snugly and I actually really liked the lacing system. And whilst there is a small amount of toe protection, I wouldn't say that the upper was particularly thick or protective overall. Overall, I really like the design. I like the combination of colours, lacing system and exaggerated midsole. So if you're looking for something that potentially you could run to the trails in, as well as tackle the trails themselves, then this is worth a look.
So now you've seen all the shoes, it's time for Andy and I to pick our favourites. And this probably isn't going to come as much of a surprise to you if you've been watching the video closely, that my favourite is the Salomon Wildcross, my well-used trail shoe. Why do I love this shoe? It's incredibly comfortable, it's incredibly responsive, you feel like you've got total control over what your feet are doing at the same time as having plenty of support. I just feel like I can go and run and run and run and run in these shoes. They're, like I say, so comfortable. I think the lacing system is really clever, and I absolutely love that you can just tuck them in and away you go. So yeah, for me, it is the Salomon Wildcross. Maybe a bit cleaner next time.
And for me, it's actually a pretty tough decision because I felt like I would have chosen different shoes for different situations. But if I had to pick one, just the sheer simplicity and how fast they felt, it would be the Hoka One One Torrent 2.
So what's your favourite trail shoe? Did we mention them, or maybe we missed them out this time? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time on the running channel. Happy running, go enjoy those trails.